light just to see if we can get the shadows off.
Now with the flash off is what you see is what you get. When you turn the flash on.
Hey everybody, Aaron J. Anderson here. Today in this video we are going to compare two lenses. I just got back from a 3-week European trip, went all over the place. I had two options as far as lenses is concerned to take with my A7 III, and that is the combination of the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8 along with my Rokinon 24mm f2.8. Those two lenses, it was either going to be those or it was going to be the Tamron 28 to 75mm f2.8, which would do 100% of my photography. But I wouldn't want to take just one lens. So as a backup lens, I would probably just take the inexpensive Sony 50mm f1.8. Why? Because it's small, it's light. If I need low light opposed to this, then I can use that. You don't even know it's in the bag and all that stuff. But what I ended up going with was taking the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8 with the Rokinon 24mm f2.8. That did 100% of my work. Of course, this can't do all the wide shots, so I had to switch lenses. Not a big deal. In 3 weeks from now, I'm going back to Europe for another 3 weeks, and now I'm saying maybe I should take this lens just to see, because one of the issues I had was switching lenses is if it's raining out, switching lenses is really scary because you don't want to get lenses rain on the sensor and stuff like that. So I said it would be nice to have this because I wouldn't ever have to switch. And I don't shoot zooms like as far as being lazy. I usually set a certain focal length and leave it there and shoot with that focal length in mind. So for me, it's not like a lazy thing. I would set it for the shot that I'm going for, but it would be nice not to switch. Now, the Sony Zeiss 55 f1.8 really spoiled me because on that trip, I realized that it's my favorite lens of all time. Can I deal with a lesser quality or aesthetic lens compared to that? And that's what I want to see. And since I'm predominantly a portrait shooter, I'm going today, for me and my wife, to go to Old San Juan, and I'm going to try these two out and see which one I like. Well, I know I'm going to like this better, but is this good enough? Can it come close for those situations like travel where, hey, it's going to be easier to take this for traveling than 2 primes or 3 primes or however you shoot. For me, being so picky, I would probably still say, oh, I'd rather just deal with primes all the time and just not even deal with the zoom. So then I'd say, why even have the zoom? Should I get rid of it? Should I keep it? There's so many things. And I know there's certain tools for the job, but I did weddings on primes, I think, all the time. I don't think did I ever have a zoom on a wedding? I can't remember. So primes for me is something I've always gone to. But since this is such a good lens, I'm going to try it out. So before you comment and say, it's not fair competing these two, I'm not trying to see, what lens is better. I'm trying to see if this is good enough for me for not, to replace this or at certain times. So it's not an apple to oranges thing, although it is. For me, it's just, would I use this? If this is that much delicious for me, like I said, I'm not even going to use that. I just rather deal with switching primes. That's what this video is about. And I am going to shoot these both wide open. I'm going to shoot this at 75mm at f2.8 and 55mm at 1.8. I'm trying to give this as best a chance I can by zooming in, getting some compression, getting a little more of a nicer perspective from this lens, and you're going to get that perceived blurriness more than if I shot at 50mm at 2.8. And for those of you saying, well, you should shoot them both at 2.8 or both at 5.6, I'm shooting these how I would use them, wide open. So that's how we're going to shoot these two lenses today. If you want to save yourself some typing, don't even talk about the apples and oranges and it's not fair. It is fair to me because I want to see which lens out of the ones I own would I use this in place of that. Stay tuned. I'll come back and we'll go to the computer and we'll see the difference in these lenses, and would I ever even consider using this when I have this, even if the convenience factor is there. I don't know. So let's check it out.
Okay, so here we are at the computer. Now you're going to notice that I skipped a big chunk of this video of me, setting up a behind the scenes camera and showing me do my photography. And the reason is when we got the old San Juan, it was only 30 minutes till sunset. So we had to literally run through this thing like really quick because I wanted to really do this test. We're just going to go through some photos real quick, and I'm just going to let you guys look at these and just do a mental note which one is the Zeiss and which one is the Tamron. So just looking at it like you would, like when if I'm going to do a composition, most people are going to look at it for how I composed it. Very few people are going to pinch and zoom. Usually it's just photographers do that. And really, most photographers won't do it if they're just looking at photos. But when they know there's a comparison, of course you're going to do that. So which one do you think is the Tamron and which one do you think is the Sony in this photo? You can pause it or whatever. And again, I'm not going to pinch and zoom. We're just going to look at it this, and then we'll get a little more critiquing this. So let's go on to the next photo. Which one do you think is the Tamron and which one do you think is the Sony? You can pause it or whatever, and we're going to move on to the next. Which one is the Tamron and which one is the Sony? And there's some major keys and clues that, you know, you should be able to pick out, but nonetheless, which one do you think that is? Let's go to the next photo. This is the one I put on Facebook groups. I do a lot of my posts on Facebook groups, also my webpage at aaronjanderson.com. I didn't put these up yet, but if you scroll down here, you can see it says camera tests and stuff. And if you want to go in here, you can check out some of the stuff. Now, I might as well just post this real quick. If you look at this, this is the Tamron 28-75 f2.8 and Sony Zeiss. Sorry for the little rabbit trail here going off, but you can see that here's the Tamron over here. Here's the Zeiss over here. The Zeiss is a little sharper. However, this is really close, and you can see the bokeh difference in this scene where the 70, zoomed in at 75 millimeter at f2.8. That's what the bokeh looks like, and the 55 millimeter f1.8. That's what the bokeh looks like, softer. And there's another, and then I did a just a wide end test with the Tamron 28 millimeter f2.8 and the Rokinon 24. Tamron is sharper than the Rokinon 24 millimeter f2.8. I don't want to spend too much time on this. This is another Tamron versus Sony 55 millimeter Zeiss. You can see over here, here's the Tamron, pretty nice and sharp, and the Sony is tack sharp right here, but of course at f1.8 this is a lot blurrier, and you can see the bokeh balls are a little larger and a little softer. Just wanted to point that out so you guys can check that, and I'll put these all up in there. And what about this one? Which one is which? Again, you can pause this if you want to take a few seconds or a minute to look at it, and then we'll go to the next one. Again, pause it so we don't have to waste too much time here. And then my wife hates this one because the pose is kind of bad, and I didn't do a good job because we were running through this, but go ahead and look at this. Which one do you think, which lens? And we are going to go to the next one here. Which one is the Sony and which one is the Zeiss? Pause it if you need to. And we're going to go to the last one, but then we will crop in just to show the difference. And here's the last one. This is more of a bokeh ball test, and this should be a clear giveaway on which one is which. Now, the main thing about this is why I was so like I said on the Facebook groups, is I was really shocked. Well, I am shocked that the Tamron holds up super good to one of the best lenses ever created that a lot of people say, and to have a zoom lens get this close is really crazy and ridiculous. You know, if I had to take the Tamron, would I take it? Well, yes, I would. The last trip I took the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8 and the Rokinon 24mm f2.8. But now after this test, on my next trip in 3 weeks back to Europe for another 3 weeks, I'm definitely going to take the Tamron because it's just this close, and to have a conveniently zoom lens. Now, we do know that the Zeiss being at f1.8, that means you're going to be able to shoot at lower ISOs and quicker shutter speeds. But for like all the shots that I did, let me just show you these. Let's show you the portraits. Out of all these shots here were with the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8 or the Rokinon 24mm f2.8. And if you look at all these shots, none of these shots, except maybe for this one, oh, and this one right here, was a low light situation. So all these were from that trip. These are all beautiful shots. None of them required a low light situation, as you can see. This one over here kind of did, but none of these major ones mattered. I mean, I could have completely and easily used the zoom lens for all these. Some of these wide shots, like this one here, this would be pretty tricky with 28mm opposed to 24mm. But I could have, just backed up, and of course the angle would have been a little bit different, but I could have pulled it off. If we look at this one here, all these shots were done either with the Sony Zeiss or the Rokinon 24mm. And to be honest with you, like a shot like this, I'm not shooting wide open. A shot like this, I'm not shooting wide open. A lot of these I'm shooting wide open here. Any of these I'm not shooting wide open. I'm shooting at f9 or f5.6 or f8 or something like that. Now this one was wide open with the Zeiss, of course. And this one, of course, is not wide open. This one was shot at f5.6 because I wanted to see the tree as well. This is probably an f9. This was an f9. That was an f9. F9, wide open. This I think was like at an f5.6. This was an f9. So you could see that the Tamron would absolutely do all of these shots just beautifully. Now, this was with 24mm. You could see that some of these shots that are super wide might have a little issue, of course. This one was at f9. This one was at like an f5.6. This one was a Rokinon f2.8. This one was, well, let's see what this one was. This one was the 55mm f1.8, so there's one of those odd ones. So you can see that the Tamron would have definitely did everything, and that's why I'm taking it, and that's why I did this test to find out that I can take it. If we zoom in on the hair here, I will show you how that if you look at the hair with the Sony Zeiss, you can see that it renders micro detail much better. You can see the hair much better displayed here, while when we go over to the Tamron, we can see that it starts to look a little broken up just because of the Sony Zeiss doing such a much better job. If you're going to shoot with any of these lenses and crop in ridiculously like this, well then of course use the Zeiss, but for the most part, I'm going to compose the shot like this, and this is how you're going to view it. If I wanted to get a closer shot with this, I would actually get closer, so the detail would be better. So in my, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. If we look into this shot here, this is a crop in of that the bokeh ball test shot, and you can see that the Sony Zeiss over here is sharper than the Rokinon. And if we really get crazy, who does this? I mean, do you take a photo and do this? I do not. But you can see my outline here and over here. You can see it, but it just looks a little noisier. That's just because of the detail. So, put that aside. It's so close that I have no issues using the Tamron. But first, before we go on, I asked 5 people independently that were not in the same room at the same time or even in the same location. I showed them this photo. I showed them all these photos, and I asked them, these were all non-photographers, and I asked them, which one do you like better? That's all I said. I didn't get any hints or laughs or giggles or suggestions or anything. And every single one of them out of 5 completely chose the Tamron lens. Every single one of them. And I thought that was really amazing. And that's when I started getting wowed about this test. So I showed every single one, so I don't even have to name names or anything. Like, including my wife, who is used to me pixel peeping. She lives with a photographer. Here she is. She's my model for a lot of my shoots. And even she picked all the Tamron shots. And I was really floored by that. I was like, wow, that's amazing, So when I asked each individual, hey, which one do you like? they always chose the right one, because all these photos, the right one is the Tamron and the left one is the Sony. And I can't tell you each individual, the difference, what they said on each photo, but I do remember my wife liked this Tamron better because she says it fills the frame more. And it's true, because you're getting that compression, you're bringing all this detail in the back closer and up. So you can see all this kind of empty sky here. And she just said the frame is full, and that's true. Also, she noticed that these flags over here actually bring a lot of nice element to this photo, and she noticed that this was bigger as well. You can see over here the photos are really far, the flags are far away. Well, because I used the zoom, it brought them closer. Of course, we could have moved her back, but if that's the shot you're going for, but she noticed that, and that's why she liked this one better. And other people said they liked this one better. On to this one. I said, which one looks better? They all said the Tamron over here on the right, and I didn't tell them anything yet. And when I asked, why does this one look better? One person said, well, I like that she's looking down, so she's actually looking at the pose more on this one. But I said, is there anything else besides the pose? And they all said it looks more clear. And they said this just looks, they never even used the word sharp. They said just looks more clear here. And of course it does, because the depth of field isn't as shallow as the Zeiss. So again, very interesting. When I came to this shot, they all chose the right one. All 5 people chose this right one. And when I asked why, the same thing. They said the water droplets look more clear. This looks more clear. Oh, even the palm trees, they just look more clear. So you're kind of getting the idea that the average person likes it when they can see more detail, which us photographers are like, no, we need to separate it and have their eye go to the subject and all that stuff. And well, the average person doesn't think so. And when I said, which one do you like here? They all said the Tamron again. And I said, why? And they said, one person said, well, I can see her foot here, I can't, so I like it for that reason. And the others just said, I don't know, it's close, but I just think you can see the lamp better in this one. It's, it was a compression area, so they're liking compression and they're liking more in focus, basically. And so these are, kind of amazed me. This shot here, same exact thing. Even though, I would always gravitate toward this, and most photographers would, because you're making the background soft and bokeh delicious and blurry, bringing your attention to the subject, but they all chose this one. And every time they say, well, this just seems a little more clear. Some people say, well, they like the angle better. Someone said they didn't like this thing here or this, but they chose this nonetheless. One person says you can see the island out here better, and there you go. This one here was a tough one for everybody. Out of all 5 people, only one person chose this. This is the only Sony Zeiss that got chosen out of all those. And when I asked why, she said, well, I don't like this yellow branch or leaves here. It just, I guess it kind of distracted me. But then she said, oh, but this is actually drawing my eye away, this gap up here. So that's kind of distracting me. And I said, so which one do you think? She goes, I guess that one. So I think this really bugged her so much where she wanted to say that one. If we zoom in, we could see the shallow depth of field difference. We could see this wall is completely blurry and this one is in focus. So, shallow depth of field isn't everything all the time. And when we looked at this one, I said, which one? And I was completely shocked that they all said the one on the right. I was like, really? In my mind, I didn't say it there. And because, we always say this is so busy and jaggedy and everything else, and the bokeh balls over here are bigger. One of them said, well, I can see these balls look better, and it looks cuter. And another person said, which was a female, she said, these just look like bubbles, so this one looks better. So they all like this one better. And what I didn't tell you out of all these, my wife mentioned it, and 2 other people out of the 5 noticed something. And what they noticed is they said, oh, the model looks skinnier in this shot. And that's because it's a 75 millimeter opposed to a 50 millimeter or 55. And now I was a little closer, and the closer you get, of course, with a wider lens, people are going to look a little more round and distorted. And that was very interesting. And my wife said, I hope you like that Tamron because I look skinnier and I look better and I like the way I look. The longer the lens, the better people look. That's just the case. But it was so funny that another non-photographer noticed that with. So where does that leave me? Well, that leads me to know that photographers might have a different eye or approach to things than the average person. So what lens would you use if you're going to shoot a client? If all 5 of those were potential clients, which one would I use? Do I use the one that I think clients will like the most? When I was actually happy and sad because I was sad that they didn't like the lens I liked the most. But then I was happy that they actually liked the Tamron. Why? Because it's inexpensive. It's weather sealed. It's a zoom lens, meaning I can use that Tamron, be 100% confident that that my clients are going to like it. I actually like it. Do I like it more than the 55? I don't know. I still like that, that 3D pop. But I wouldn't hesitate to use the Tamron. And it all goes down to also being the photographer and not the gear. So whichever lens you like as a photographer, you should probably use it, because if I didn't put these side by side and told them, they would probably just love the shots. If they were a client and I did this shot for a client, let's say and I didn't give them I didn't tell them, they would probably like either one because, ooh, I love the pose or whatever. But side by side, they chose the Tamron. So that's it, guys. I don't know what else to say. The Tamron's an amazing lens. I'm going to use it on my next trip. That'll give me even more an idea if I like it over the primes that I used just a week ago. Well, a couple days ago on my 3-week trip to Europe. So I was happy that they all liked the Tamron in the end, because that means I can use a zoom lens and people's going to like it, especially clients. Between the 2 lenses, this was an eye-opener for me. When I was shooting on my trip, I saw so much chromatic aberration on the Sony Zeiss that I was like, wow. Well, the Zeiss is really bad in chromatic aberration, this Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8. So much so that it was a bummer to fix in post. It actually took more time in post to fix. And let me just show you why it was so bad. Look at the chromatic aberration on that. This is the Zeiss. Look at all that green. And if over here is the Tamron. There's like 0 on the Tamron. Now, I did find it in various small little spots that I wouldn't even fix because you couldn't see it. But this is really bad over here. I mean, look at that chromatic aberration. And the bad thing is, I had the on all of my vacation photos and these photos in Lightroom, I had it clicked to fix the chromatic aberration, and it won't fix this. It just will not. It is really bad. In order to fix this on some of my shots that I did, I actually posted one on a Facebook group, A73 Facebook group or whatever you call that. And one person said, "Oh, I love this shot, but you should have fixed the chromatic aberration or turned on the button in Lightroom." And it's like, I did. And then when I went back, it says, wow, it is really bad. So in order to fix some of those purple ones, if there's no purple in the shot, you could take this photo, or let's just say there's purple in the shot. Take the purple selective tool and just desaturate it all, get rid of the purple. But when you have trees and the chromatic aberration is green, how do you fix it? Well, I would have to desaturate all the green and then put this on top of, this photo here, and then go through and selectively basically erase this one so that the bottom one shows through, or vice versa. I'm getting a little confused here. But it was just a pain in the butt to get rid of some of the chromatic aberration. So for them to like the Tamron, the convenience of a zoom, and then not have to fix the chromatic aberration was amazing. Look at the chromatic aberration here. Now, if you look at the photos for what it is like this, you're not going to notice too much. And then we're going to go to the pixel peeping situation. That one photo, you don't even have to pixel peep. It was really bad. But just the pixel peep, if you wanted to crop, even though I said I would just get closer, if you just wanted to crop, this looks beautiful. There's like, well, there might be a little bit of purple here, a little bit of purple coming through on the ends of her hair, but even cropping in on this photo, you don't see it. But look over here. This is very green right here. This is really green here. There's a lot of green chromatic aberration here. Up here, there's green going along her hat. So if there's a little bit here. So if you just want to say, well, don't pixel peep, then we can bring it back out. How do I go back out? And you don't necessarily see it too much here if you're just looking at it. but it's there, and there's a lot of shots I had that was like this where you don't even have to pixel peep and you can see all the green fringing going on there. So that's it, guys. I won't keep you anymore. Tamron's amazing. Does it make it my favorite lens of all time? No, I still like the Sony Zeiss 55 because it just has that 3D pop. As for me as a artist, I like that, but clients will nonetheless not know the difference and or like your Tamron better. So if you're on a budget, I would definitely buy the Tamron, and you could use that for most of your shots. Talk to you later, guys. Give me some thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and go to my webpage and see these in their full glory. Well, not full. They kind of compress it over there. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.